Organs can be continuously transplanted. The longer you live, the younger you become, and can even achieve immortality.
Organ swaps, organ swap, and organ swaps. This is what the CCP is trying so hard, trying to get people to avoid talking about, because that quiet part is the most important and most feared aspect of secrets among secrets in the Chinese Communist Party. On September 5th, Reuters pulled a 4-minute hot mic video of Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping discussing the possibility of humans living till they're 150. You guessed it, swapping out organs through organ transplants. After state broadcaster CCTV revoked its license, Reuters essentially had to remove the clips because it wasn't part of the entire live stream. Now, you can still find the entirety of the live stream where they did talk about this, so it's not fake or AI or anything like that. But the removal isn't the point. The point is that the CCP is afraid that this mini clip can be circulated online, exposing what later we've come to know as the Project 981 from being known to the public of its existence. This idea of keeping the leaders alive, this casual 150 line, is part of a long-running program to keep top CCP officials alive by any means necessary, but most importantly, by organ harvesting. Now, you might have heard of Unit 731 from the Japanese Army, but have you ever heard of the Project 981, this perfect human organ program? A paramount leader, life support system built to push elites towards the age of 150. And there was even an ad boasting that goal. Now, much of the trail on the internet, especially on Chinese social media and internet search, have been scrubbed of this program. You won't find much other than some news reports. But there's a key date. The first instances of 981 happened in May of 2005. There was a task force that was formed. Why is that date important? Well, a year later, international news media started to talk about the first evidence and whistleblowers, documentary evidence suggesting that Chinese hospitals have been participating in forced organ harvesting. Is that a coincidence or cause and effect? You see, on paper, 981, this project is very normal. It does things like early cancer screening, vital organ diagnostics, anti-aging medicine, 5 major health pillars as it shows here. And even one of them is a sexual function improvement or sexual function maintenance. I don't know why 80 and 90-year-olds need to have that, but then again, it's the CCP. They always have their corrupt, this idea of, having the women or very low stuff, right? But basically, they need to have that part as well. The idea is just simple, right? Everything except for the brain can be swapped out, and there is a huge pool of organ donors who are ready and available. Now, you might be thinking, how can you arrive at the conclusion that this is forced organ harvesting? Even the original clip, Putin and Xi Jinping may be talking about biotechnology or maybe some lab-grown stuff. Well, knowing the CCP, let me just give you one example. Liver cancer. Now, liver cancer is probably the deadliest cancer out there because the data, according to what I've found, in China, the survival rate of, if you find the cancer early, is about 12%. In the United States, it's a little bit higher, it's about 20% or 22%. But if through early screening you find the cancer and then you perform a liver transplant, the survival rate jumps up to about 70 to 80%. So for anyone that has the chance to be able to get an organ transplant, they would choose this route because the survival rate quadruples or triples. Now, as you can imagine, the CCP and its officials, they treat their paramount leadership as the utmost important aspect of this entire regime. So for them, getting an organ transplant is probably the #1 option, provided as long as they can get somebody to match the organ. How about things like rejection rate or drug that you have to take after the transplant? Well, the thing is, now with modern technology for transplantation, if you can get a perfect matching donor, preferably somebody who is not a sibling or a family member, but still very much close in the matching of your blood types, tissue types, etc., you could technically have a low rejection rate organ transplant, meaning that you don't have to take as much drugs. And in other words, it's a perfect compatible organ transplant. So that might make you think of something, right? Where would they find a huge number of people who are so willing to be matched for an organ donation or be willing to do this? Well, I guess China, with its 1.4 billion people, might be a great place to do this. But hold that thought for a second, because this whole 981 project didn't pop out of nowhere. It was already in the books in the 60s when Mao was still alive. So here's a report here that shows that they're basically praising, saying that Mao could live till he was 150. So this idea has been in the minds of the CCP officials for a very long time. But it didn't really get serious until the 90s. Multiple things happened in the 90s, so I'll try to make it very rational and succinct. So the first thing that happened in the 90s was a whistleblower, a Uyghur doctor from China named Enver Toddy. You can find many of his interviews on YouTube. He first, one of the earliest to expose this forced organ harvesting that was taking place in China. His story was that in the 90s, when he was a young doctor, he had participated in this secret mission where they went out in a van to the rural, remote mountainside and took organs from this person. Now, if they were already doing this in the 90s, clearly that set of organs was for someone. It just wasn't doing this on a massive scale yet. So what else happened in the 90s? Well, in 1992, or even before 1992, there was a huge boom in China of Qigong practices, which basically are essentially like meditation, spiritual practice, and all of these. One of the most popular at the time was called Falun Gong. And at the height of it, there was about 100 million people in China practicing this. But it was outlawed in 1999, and this led to the persecution of Falun Gong. Now, during the height of Falun Gong in China, even CCP officials were practicing this. To many, but to some, like Jiang Zemin, who initiated the persecution, he probably had ulterior motives. Because here's the thing. When it comes to political persecution and campaigns against individual groups in China, the CCP is very good at demonizing that group. And once you demonize the group, you can deem everything that they do as illegal. In turn, everything you do to them is legal. So in that sense, remember the 2006 date, right? In 2005, this Project 981 task force was formed. 2006, we immediately get the first set of evidence suggesting that Chinese hospitals are harvesting organs from Falun Gong practitioners who were detained, arrested, disappeared in jail and prison camps. So is this all a coincidence that in the 90s they started to test out this gear swapping, and then by the turn of the century, they have a massive number of people in prison who are basically deemed illegal for what they believe in or what they practiced, and then suddenly 5 years later, you have this program that's been created. A year after that, you have this allegation of forced organ harvesting. In other words, a once unachievable, unavailable group of organ donors suddenly became a pool of available organ donors in the span of a decade. Another thing that made the 90s really special for the CCP in this sense is the popularization of computers and the internet. Because prior to that, in order to keep a large health database on individuals, without the internet, it's really hard. And that's also why during the series of political campaigns prior to the 90s, even including the Tiananmen Square massacre, you didn't really have a lot of political prisoners. You simply had a lot of bloodshed. But after that, in the 90s, the early 2000s, and even until now, you have things like concentration camps, you have religious prisoners of conscience being kept in prison, you have a lot of these disappearances of people. So suddenly it went from this seemingly violent to non-violent method of disappearing people. Doesn't make sense initially, but now it seems to make me think that, well, maybe they've been turned into donors. This is why I call it the perfect organ program, because you essentially have at any given moment, a person ready, already matched because they now have data to, have their health data, upload it to Chinese database, and you also have the health data of the CCP officials. At any given moment, it's almost like a slaughterhouse. And you don't have to worry about anything like compatibility or organ rejection or anything like that, because guess what? There's enough people out there in China. And that's why I say this program has now been expanded to regular Chinese folks, not just those in prison. Because you never know, right? The CCP has a bunch of friends as well. You got the Russia, Iranian, North Korea, whoever else needs that treatment of the 981 program, they can get it in China. They can come and they can get their thing. So if a regular person can somehow get an organ within a week in China, think about how easy it is for a CCP official to get that, but like higher quality. So let's go back to the original exchange between Xi and Putin. Are they really talking about some new biotechnology? No, not really. Xi Jinping wasn't reading some science research paper. He was literally telling you that Chinese scientists have been working on this program to prolong their life through all of these different things. But at the center of it, let's just get a new organ, because nothing is better than getting a new one when your old one, it's like getting an oil change, right? Rather than cleaning your existing oil, you just put in new oil and things just work better. So how did this program develop over the last 2 decades? Well, here's the picture. The 981 Health Technology Group, which is widely believed to be fronting this program, it was founded in 2004 by one of China's first health management bases. His name is Zhao Wei. He's the founder. He's a longtime physician to senior officials in the party. And this fast forward to 2015, he was surfaced publicly as deputy director of the 981 Leaders Health Project, and he led a talk titled, "Let You Keep Commanding for 50 More Years." And in 2016, which is a year later, he's profiled now as a president of this organization, promising things like healthy at 88, longevity at 150. He explained the 981 program as numerology plus military rigor, because this is a PLA-backed program with PLA medical research. By 2017, a year after that, the group is now on stage at the Great Hall of the People, essentially as the world-leading leaders' healthcare system for the CCP officials. In 2019, Zhao moves to chairman, and former PLA Health Bureau Chief Wang Wenzhou then becomes president of this program. And they open up centers across China, and they called one of them is a one-stop longevity ecosystem, which is tied to the military, provincial, and university hospitals. This also includes many of the hospitals who are already been accused of performing forced organ harvesting. So you can see this whole chain is coming together, right? Now, some of these ads and videos have already been deleted, and the pattern is very consistent. It's a protected pipeline for elites and their longevity. It's a hospital network with PLA roots. And it's dates that rhyme with the first major allegations of forced organ harvesting in China. And after so many years, this isn't like you're making a car part. This is people we're talking about. You continuously require a supply of people. And unfortunately, this hasn't stopped. It has expanded. It has moved on from prisoners of conscience, people who were deemed illegal, to now everybody. You could be a potential donor and you wouldn't even know it in China. So I'll go back to my original words. Organ swap, organ donors, and you should be really careful if you're in China. All right, thank you so much for watching this episode. Hope you enjoyed the content. Let me know your thoughts in the comment about this project 981, or even 891 sometimes it's called. And if you think it's actually something that could work, or maybe is real or not, let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure to click that subscribe button and also like this video to help us send this video to more people on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.